So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Cerrone Global FDI Lead Generation Seminar. This morning, we're going to introduce ourselves, give you an outline about us, about the branding that we offer to organisations like your good selves, our value proposition and development, the communication strategy, and how we go about FDI lead generation. Cerrone Global, as you can see from the slide, I'll just read, is a marketing agency for economic development organisations and investment promotion agencies. We help you with branding, value proposition for your brand, the development of the brand, and help with lead generation. Our experience is twofold. We have development, economics and marketing backgrounds. We're based in the UK and we have consultants in all 6 continents. I'm Christina Griffin. I work with Prince Apar, who is the Managing Director of Cerrone Global, and I head up the business development department for the business. So on behalf of myself and Prince, we welcome you. I'm now going to hand you over to Prince, who will then take you through the rest of the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Christina, for the brief introduction. That was really good. So everybody, thanks so much again for taking the time to join the webinar today. I'll first of all start off by welcoming you all. I know it's probably quite early, late for some of you, so hopefully we didn't keep you too long. Now, let me know if you can see my screen, Christina.
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So I'm guessing everyone else can see my screen. That's good. Okay, so all right, so I've gone full screen here. So Cerrone Global, as Christina mentioned, is an FDI lead generation agency. The outline we're going to go through today, Christina has already covered branding. At the About Us section, we're going to go through branding, value proposition development, communication strategy, FDI lead generation, and we're going to have a bit of time for Q&A afterwards. So if you do have any questions as we're going through it, by all means, put the question in a chat and we can tackle that question once we get to the Q&A section. So, so we've covered a bit about us. So to probably touch on that briefly, our background is mostly development economics and marketing. We have many years experience in these 2 areas. And so we are effectively combining those expertise to help organizations with their FDI lead generation efforts. Now, a lot of what we're going to present, especially the first stages of what we're going to present, is going to be things that you might know, but then towards the end, we're going to go through, if you like, a specific use case that you can use to start generating leads today, right? You can come off this call and you can start implementing this strategy today, because ultimately what we wanted to do today was give you something that you can use, right? Something of value that you can actually use once you get off this call. So the first thing for any successful FDI strategy is to have a defined branding strategy or defined place branding strategy, because your brand is what you promise to investors. What investors say about your place, what investors will get from your place, how you treat investors, how you advertise, etc., etc. So clearly, branding is very important. So what that means is, before you even start your FDI efforts, the first thing you want to really think about is, what is our branding strategy, right? And so if you don't have a branding strategy in place for your FDI efforts, the advice here is, it's worth revisiting what the branding strategy is, because the branding strategy is actually linked to the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the value proposition. Many destinations try to, as you know, tempt investors with various offers, and a lot of the times it's based around incentives on cost-based incentives, which is not always the best for investors. So then the question is, well, how can you win, right? And the way to win and to differentiate yourselves from the competition is effectively to develop a strong value proposition that meets your target audience, right? And so you might think, well, okay, how do we do that? Again, if you don't have a value proposition already, and this is something we can always help with after this conversation. If you want us to be in touch or contact you in regards to developing a value proposition or even a branding strategy, let us know and we'll be able to help you. So, you know, a value proposition is your promise to investors. It shows your why your target audience should believe you. It communicates why you are different, and it provides evidence to support your claim. Now you can see this diagram here on the left, right? And it talks about the value proposition seesaw, which is, you know, when you promise something, imagine, you know, a place or destination and you say, hey, we are the best destination for electronics manufacturers. Okay, so that's, you know, that's part of the promise, right? So then you want to communicate, okay, for an investor, why should they come to your destination? So you want to give them a promise. So that's that part. And you want to also say to that investor in your value proposition why you are different. And you want to also have some evidence to support the two claims that you're making. One, the promise, and two, the differentiation that you're claiming. Now, of course, the investor is going to assess these things against how much it's going to cost them, right? Because everything is an opportunity cost. How much is going to cost them, and also what are the risks involved, and thirdly, how much effort is required on the part of the investor. Now, most investors make their decisions when the blue side outweighs the orange side, right? So if the promise outweighs the price, the risk, and the effort required, you are winning. So this is clearly why it's important to develop a unique value proposition, because, you know, everybody in the market saying, yeah, you know, come to my place, come to my destination, because we offer the lowest cost. It's not truly a differentiation. Don't get me wrong. You can go to market with a cost-based differentiation, but so can everyone else. So oftentimes to win, you want to try different differentiation strategies, right? And again, if anyone needs help on that, let us know and we'll be happy to help. And thirdly, you know, assuming you have your place branding strategy and value propositions developed, the next stage is to develop a communication strategy to actually communicate, one, your brand, two, your value proposition. And that communication strategy should, you know, talk about things like, you know, why you are communicating, your why, what you will be communicating, how often you will communicate, how you will reach those investors, and how you will measure success. Now I'll show how that actually looks, how that communication strategy actually looks. So a communication strategy, you know, should talk about how investors would come in contact with your place or destination, right, on multiple touch points. So take the awareness stage. This is where an investor becomes aware of your brand or your destination or place and its value proposition. So the question you want to ask yourself at this stage is, okay, how will you be reaching investors? So, you know, the normal methods are like, you know, trade shows, road shows, events, trade events, etc., etc. And as well as, you know, FDI lead generation through companies like ourselves, where you outsource your lead generation, you know, to third parties to say, hey, find me investors, so they can become aware of our destination or place and our value proposition. Great. The next thing you want to really be thinking about is, okay, as far as the communication strategy goes, how would you reach investors when they are interested in your place or destination? So investors normally go through these stages where, one, they become aware of your place, let's say through a trade show, right? You exhibited at a particular event, and so they saw your place. So they think, okay, you know, this place looks interesting. So they start reading a bit more. They are in the interest stage. Now they start looking at, they start evaluating your place along with other places. So they are considering your place with others. So the question is, how would you reach and make the investor's life easier at this stage, right? And there are, if you like, materials that you can use, comparison posts, sort of white papers, feasibility studies, etc., to make that investor's decision process a lot easier. Trialing stage, this is when investors actually visit a destination, or they send somebody to visit a destination to do a bit of feasibility studies on the particular location. In that case, you want to be asking yourself, how would you be assisting investors at this stage? What are some of the measures you're going to be putting in place to make that investor's life easier once they are actually on the ground? And adoption, how would you be assisting investors as they adopt your place, right? Company registration, import duty, sort of taxation processes. What are the incentives? Building of clusters, the actual supply chains within the particular country, etc. So plenty of considerations there, but these are the sort of things you want to be thinking about as you build out your FDI lead generation strategy. And then finally, loyalty. So imagine an investor has decided to come to your destination, they've set up shop, they've set up the sort of trading post, be it manufacturing, retail, whatever it is that they've set up. Now, the question is, you want to find out how you're going to retain those investors, because we find a lot of times investors, set up in one country, and then after 5-10 years, they move to another country because, okay, it's a lot cheaper in that particular country. So then the question is, okay, how do we retain those investors, right? So these are the sort of things that you want to be thinking about as you build out your FDI strategy in general. All right, so from here, we're going to jump into the actual practicalities that you can actually take away from today's session and implement. So if you came onto this webinar thinking, I'm probably going to receive some webinar type content and it might not be very useful for me, you are wrong. If you came to this webinar thinking, I'm going to join this workshop and hopefully I'm going to get something useful to take with me, you are right. So what we're going to show you now is something that you can actually take, go implement it yourselves, or have an FDI lead generation agency such as ourselves implement this for you. And you can actually reach those investors that you are looking for with these strategies that we're going to show you, right? Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to provide you with value. Now, of course, there are multiple FDI lead generation strategies. Each has its own cost. However, for today's workshop, we wanted to show you these two methods, which we think are cost effective to implement and very quick to see results, right? Now, granted, if you have a team of professionals and lead generators, great, you can do this yourself. If you don't have those resources, then it makes sense to seek an external party such as ourselves to help you with that FDI lead generation effort. So the first option we're going to consider is LinkedIn. So we go onto LinkedIn and we say, okay, we're going to take an example. We're looking for a destination such as the United States. We want investors from the United States. We're looking for job titles such as Director of Procurement, Supply Manager, CFO, etc., Chief Executive, etc. And we're looking for companies that have maybe 500 employees plus. Now you can filter and change it to, let's say, 1,000 employees plus, depending on what it is that you're looking for. And so for this particular example, we've chosen the electronics manufacturing space. Now, of course, you can choose any particular industry that you want and select what it is that you want from this list, right? So if you're looking for biotech investors, you can do exactly the same thing. If you're looking for petroleum investors, you can do exactly the same thing. But for this example, we're going to choose electronics only. And so once we've chosen the filters and the criteria that we want, LinkedIn is very good. That is going to show you potentially how many people are within that audience, right? And so for a budget of as small as, say, £1,700, LinkedIn is going to promise you between 4 to 52 leads in a 30-day period, which is amazing, right? So imagine you run a campaign and you even get 20 leads 20 highly targeted leads in a 30-day period, and those leads are being followed up with, I'm sure in the end, in a 6 months period, you can see some sort of traction as a result. Now, one thing we always say to organizations we work with is, it's all very well generating the leads, but the important thing is to convert those leads, right? So we have a business development manager. Christina heads our business development department. When we generate these leads, we have somebody then who follows up with these leads for the organizations we work with, so that those leads are not sat there cold, they are actually being engaged and they are actually being qualified. So that's one example, using LinkedIn ads. And it's very cost effective. You can go try it today, right after this call. Or like I said, if you think you're better off using a third party such as ourselves, you can as well. All right. So the next strategy I wanted to share with everybody was LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So again, we focused on those criteria that you saw earlier. So companies that have 500 employees plus, we focused on the very senior team. We focused on consumer electronics, and we focused on the United States. Of course, you can choose any destination that you want. Again, after this webinar, you can jump off, visit these websites to see for yourself how this actually works. So you can see here, we can see a lot of companies already. So we can see the director of global procurement here. For one company, we can see one for another company. So we can already see plenty of contacts, right, based on this search alone. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. So you have this list of contacts information. Then the next question is, well, what are you going to do with it? Again, if you have the resources in-house, it makes sense. Those people can then follow up with these leads that you've seen and then do your follow-up. If you don't, you're better off using a third party such as ourselves to do that particular qualification for you. So that's that with regards to LinkedIn. You can click on one particular person and you can see plenty of information about that particular person. You can see like how many years they've been in that particular organization, their university they went to, etc., etc. I'm sure most of you use LinkedIn, so this should not be much of a surprise. Now, we have various tools that we tend to use. So this information on its own is not very useful. However, we have specific tools that we use that we can pull the email address, the contact number of that particular person, so that that data becomes much more useful, right? So those tools are available to ourselves, and we're happy to share it with you. If you're interested, just reach out to us and we'll be able to share those tools with you. With that, I end this particular webinar. Thank you for your time. We're going to go into Q&A. If you do have any questions at all, please do send those questions to contact@seroniglobal.com. And with that, yeah, we are ready to take Q&A. So any questions from anyone? All right. I'll just hang about now just to see if there are any more questions. Christina, can you see any questions on the Zoom chat? Okay, so Christina has just sent me one question, which is, what other tools can we use to find company signals? Now, we tend to use a series of databases. Now, of course, there are multiple tools on the market that people can use as far as finding signals go. Now, one particular favorite of ours is internal that we use, and we can find things like companies that have recently had an M&A, companies that have recently, had investment companies that have recently had any signal that we want for that matter, right? And based on those signals, we can then effectively go with our sales development reps and say, hey, based on these signals that you've seen from this particular company, contact this company to find out if there's an actual opportunity from this company. So there are multiple signals that people can use for this purpose. All right.
Hi, Prince. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, we have had another question from Ramsey Gara. Is there any other relevant platforms as LinkedIn to use?
There are multiple platforms. So it depends on your location that you want to target, right? So for instance, in the sort of Asian/Chinese market, there are specific platforms in those regions that you can tap into. In the Dutch region, so there's QQ, there's Taobao in those regions that you can actually target specific people on. For the German-speaking world, for example, there is a platform called Zinc, which is also very good for targeting people. So yeah, it really depends on the location of where you want to target, right? But then again, if you're not big on targeting using like social networks, there are always tools that you can actually use. So there are specific data tools. So we use a number of data bases, if you like, to search for exactly the same information that you saw on LinkedIn. So if you think, hey, you would want access to some of these tools, by all means, after this call, ping us a message on contact@suroniglobal.com. We'll be able to show you, give you a trial of some of the tools that we do use, and you can see for yourself the sort of data you can get, right? All right. Any more questions?
No, I haven't got any more that I can see.
Okay. All right. So if there are, I think this is another question that has come in. Christina, can you see?
Yes, bear with me. No, they've just Ramsey's just told me that there is one in the chat, which is what we've just answered. I'm just gonna.
Okay.
I don't think there is another one. No, not at the moment.
Okay. All right. So once again, thanks everybody for joining. If anyone thinks of any question after this session and you think, hey guys, I would want for somebody to talk me through something very specific, let us know. Remember, there are multiple ways you can do this, right? We've only showed you one platform, and we've showed you two methods on this one platform. There are multiple avenues for which you can take your lead generation efforts. Obviously, we've done this for the purposes of time. So if you think, hey, you would want to know the various strategies you can use to generate leads for your organization, by all means, let us know. Reach out to us, contact@suroniglobal.com. We'll be able to talk you through some of the lead generation strategies that we do use, and hopefully that can help you. We hope you found value in this session. Any questions, like we said, please do contact us at contact@suroniglobal.com, and we will be very happy to help. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prince. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.